I gotta know how some of these decisions are made, because some of them are so, at best, disruptive, and at worst, hostile to the comics industry.
This goes out to the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all. What? Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. And it's hard, and it's a job for the challengers. What? Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast with Patrick Brower and W. Dale Bush.
We joke that every week the comics industry gives us more to talk about. This week, it's not the comics industry so much as just us personally.
Oh, really?
And, you don't have to say that. You were there.
What happened?
You know that things happened. Like, for example, the refrigerator that we both rely on while recording in this very studio has crapped out. And
not even crapped out. Slowly been crapping out.
Yeah.
Which is maybe worse.
Like, it's not dead. It's just, it keeps things cool, not cold.
Right.
Nothing freezes.
Right.
Nothing gets cold. Like, we honestly don't know how bad the things in it are. Like, if they're...
I'm pretty much anything that needed to be cold, like lunch meat or cheeses and stuff, I'm just tossing that out.
Yeah.
I'm just giving up on it. Same thing for all the frozen foods. Like, unfortunately, those all have to get tossed, which, as always, great time for all that to happen.
Yeah.
It's a great time to need to replace a refrigerator's worth of food in the midst of a pandemic where things are sort of limited and it's harder to get them. And we are making 75% less money than we normally do.
And we had kind of just stocked up like a week or so ago.
Pretty much. So that's great.
And also the time frame involved, because our landlord is getting a new fridge, but because of the pandemic couldn't get it immediately.
Right.
We had to wait basically a week.
Yeah.
From reportage to... Then we reported it, then they had to send someone out to look at it, who... a wonderful older gentleman named Peter, who doesn't... English is not his first language.
No.
I believe he's Polish. And he's... we've seen him a lot over the years. The studio, even though it's, millions of dollars worth of technology.
Yeah.
The infrastructure itself is not one that we really keep up on.
No.
And we've gotten... since we've been using this recording studio, we've had a new air conditioner, a new heater, a new hot water heater.
Yeah.
Now it's the fridge's turn, but he first comes in and he opens it and he's like, "Oh, see, it's cold." And I have a glass jug of water, and he does that. See, it's cold. I'm like, "It is not cold. It is just cool. Put your hand all the way in. It's not cold."
Yeah.
Then he's like, "No, it's fine." Then he calls the owner of the building and talks in a different language, and then he pulls it out from the wall and he's moving around, and then he turns to me and says, "Oh, this is garbage." You went from "this is fine" to "this is garbage" in mere minutes. And it's true, the refrigerator was 23 years old. And the hilarious part about this is that when I moved into the city, and when you moved into the city, I had, within a year before that, just bought a really nice new refrigerator with a built-in ice maker and water maker and all those things, but it was just too big to bring here. The cutout area for the refrigerator is for like an 18 cubic feet refrigerator. This one was much bigger.
Yeah.
So my brother got that fridge.
Nice.
And this isn't comic related at all, but it's part of our week, so it counts.
Okay.
They're getting rid of the refrigerator, and so we get the shipping information for the new refrigerator. And this is the year 2020. And I'm like, man, what kind of fridge are we going to get? The exact same basic white top freezer, bottom refrigerator, 2 crisper drawers.
Yeah, chances are if you've lived in a moderately to modestly priced apartment anytime in the last decade, you probably had this exact same model of refrigerator. Like, it's as basic as you can get. The only difference between the current refrigerator and the new refrigerator is the new refrigerator's handles are white instead of black. Like, that's it.
It's the only difference.
Yeah, so it's like...
It's laughable how basic it is.
Yeah, which, I mean, it's fine. As long as it works.
Yeah,
I'm not
absolutely.
But yeah,
absolutely.
There was that brief window of like, ooh, we're going to get a nice new upgraded refrigerator. No,
and also, I saw what he's paying for this. He's paying for this what we paid for the really good one like 11 years ago.
Yeah, it's not great.
So, I would have thought maybe you have to pay extra because hardly anybody makes these basic. Like, honestly, we should just take the fridge from Sidekicks and bring it here.
Maybe.
So that was fun. And during the time where the store is closed to people coming in, and I forgive me, I do not recall if we talked about this before, there are certain minor upgrades that I wanted to be doing to the store.
Yeah.
Small changes, just quality of life things. Honestly, things that people won't even notice, but we will.
Mm-hmm.
And I started one of the projects, and it was coming along really well. And we start small, and then we're like, oh, if this works, we'll expand and do the rest of the store.
Right.
And again, because we're in a pandemic, it's hard to get materials. You have to order them and have them shipped. It's not as easy as just going to Home Depot because the quantity of things we need that they're not carrying.
Yeah.
And then we had an ambitious back issue plan, but we literally cannot get what we need for it.
Yeah.
Because the stores are closed.
Yeah.
And the quantities we want for mail order are just too big.
Yeah, it's a thing where we would need to go to a local store to pick it up, and the local store is closed until they're able to reopen to the public.
And we try to ship it, but they're like, hey, you're asking for too many. You can't have this many.
Yeah.
Well, we're not doing this halfway.
No.
But anyway, I imagine some of the people listening, I was going to say some of you people listening, but I changed it to the people listening. I imagine, listener, it's possible you've seen one of our Instagram or Facebook videos that we've been doing in this downtime. We didn't start out to do a series. It was just a one-off Godzilla video that turned into a, hey, let's do something fun. And then it became, hey, let's do something every Wednesday and Friday. Mm-hmm. And we tried to have them done in advance. And I had mentally decided that we were going to quit the week that books start coming out again. Because we're not going to have the time for it anymore.
Sure.
And it was also to fill the gap while there was nothing new for people, and now there'll be stuff new for people.
Yeah.
So this past Wednesday, we were filming the last three. The final three videos.
Which wasn't even supposed to be three. Like, we had an idea for one. Well, you had an idea for one.
Which actually went up this Friday, the Manitoba Melee one.
And then you had half an idea for another one. And then in between those, we were like, what, can we do another one? And I came up with one real fast.
So we could just knock out a full week's worth.
Yeah. It was like low setup stuff.
Yeah.
But then we figured out what the end could be for the other one. And then we did that one. And that was the last one we filmed. And
the last one we filmed is definitely the last one we filmed because...
Patrick had a boo-boo.
Patrick had a boo-boo. There was an accident that occurred. And none of these are really physically demanding stunts or anything.
Correct.
Only this one, and this is not the one where you were hitting me in the face multiple times.
No. Oddly enough, that's not the one that caused an injury.
No. Oddly enough, that one we had to do again because that wasn't hitting me hard enough.
Yeah.
We needed him like, hey man, you gotta go a little harder. So without going into too much detail, the one that airs next Friday, there was casualty. And when I say casualty, I don't mean the British medical drama. I kind of do though because it put me in the hospital.
Yeah, boy, I found the I was rearranging some action figures.
You found the hook
to put some stuff on our Shopify store, which now has all of our Pops and Marvel Legends, and we'll have the rest of the toys pretty soon.
It's amazing how much extra work Dal is doing for the Shopify store now that he's at the store every day because I can't go in.
But as I was moving things, I found one of the action figure hooks was bent.
Yeah,
and what's crazy about it is it's not the sort of thing you can bend back into place.
Nope.
It's not supposed to bend at all, and it's bent.
Did you replace it?
I did, yes.
Did you keep that one aside?
I sure did. That's a trophy.
That's probably going to go up on the wall or something. Long story short...
So let's set the stage for what... Do you want to just explain what the video is?
No, because I want people to see the video.
Oh, you are going to put the video up?
Yeah.
Okay.
I edited it.
Okay.
It's complete.
Because you had said at one point you were maybe not going to show that and just show...
No, you had said you wanted me to show the ending.
I wanted you to do both.
Okay. Well...
I definitely want you to do both the video and then the end
aftermath
of the video with the epilogue. Like, I think both of those independently need to be seen.
So I edited whilst I was in the my phone. I edited the videos down and I got that one done because that one had a lot of interspatial editing.
Sure.
So I got the actual one done. Mm-hmm. And then I did just ironically, they're the exact same length, both of them.
Sure.
Just the aftermath, the impact and the aftermath. And I sent that to a few people so they could see what happened.
Okay.
But so I don't want to describe too much what happens because I want people to see the video. Yeah.
Do you want to explain what happened to you?
Yeah, I wound up running almost full force into the wall of action figures at the south end of the store.
Sure. Which, if people haven't seen our wall of action figures, to hang the action figures, we have... How long would you say those hooks are? 3 inches?
They're 4 inches.
4 inches? 4 inch... What material is that? It's like metal,
It's metal.
with a paint on it?
Yeah.
Like
First, there's
like a painted metal?
hooks that come off the wall that grid wall sits into, and there's panels of 2 foot by 4 foot, 2 foot by 5 foot grid wall, and then there's these hooks that each hook holds an individual action figure, or it could hold more if we had more.
And these are pretty thick, round hooks that come off the wall. They're basically like a spike that comes off the wall that angles up a little bit at the end.
It's weird because when people see them, they know exactly what we're talking about. But when I'm describing this to healthcare professionals, none of them understood.
Yeah.
But it's possible none of them have ever been in a store that has action figures on the wall.
Yeah. But anyway, so Patrick ran basically full force into those while falling.
Yeah, it wasn't the plan. It wasn't like a stunt that went wrong. It wasn't like, okay, now just kind
It was a stunt that went wrong.
Well, yeah, but I mean, it didn't involve the wall.
No.
Patrick
was supposed to stop a few feet in front of the wall.
Yeah.
And didn't.
Only I pitched forward, and my momentum carried me straight into the wall,
Yes.
and I was already on a downward trajectory. So, like, everything hit from the lower half of the wall, from my shoulder to a little bit of my face to basically all over the rest of my body, but including one hook that went as deep into my thigh as possible without actually puncturing the skin.
Yeah. One of the good things about these hooks is they're not sharp at the end. They're rounded.
They're blunt.
Yeah. So
they cause blunt trauma.
Yeah, and boy did they.
Honest to God, I wonder if it wouldn't have been better for me if it had punctured.
I mean, in retrospect, yes, it probably would have.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it's maybe, splitting the difference, but it probably would have been a lot more... the problem was, so Patrick's on the ground, and he's making on-the-ground noises.
Breathing very heavy. Saying, oh God.
But it again, there's a thing
I think I punctured my thigh.
where there's no visible wound.
Right.
So and he was able to, not quickly, but was able to stand up.
With your help.
I know, but...
And the help of the grid wall.
But I mean, in any sort of accident like that, people are going to need a little help getting up off the ground.
Yeah.
But you're able to get up and walk around. You walk to the bathroom. So there was a sense of like, boy, we dodged a bullet here.
Yeah.
Because there was a point where I was watching it happen, and it's Patrick's a larger gentleman than I am. There's more Patrick than there is Dal. So when Patrick's pitching forward while running full tilt, there's kind of nothing I can do but watch. I can't really, get involved in this scenario at all. I can't, catch him or push him to the side. It's...
You could have thrown yourself in front of the hooks for me, but I'll let that go. There wasn't a lot of time.
I definitely would have been impaled, because that's kind of my point, is that when I was watching it, it happens really fast, but there is a fraction of a second where I'm like, oh, he's going to lose an eye. Where the hook is, it's a 4-inch hook.
Yeah.
And that thing, if you're running into that and you're any part of your eye, that's it. It's gone. And there's a question mark of how deep does it go into his head?
I mean, to be fair, it didn't even knock my glasses off.
Which is great. I mean, all of that is that is the bullet dodge. Is that it did not cause serious trauma and or death. So that's great. But you get up and you go to the bathroom and you check it out. And again, there's no blood, there's no puncture, there's no anything.
I can tell you that the grossest part of it was in the bathroom, there was a part over my thigh that had immediately swelled up and filled with fluid, but it was squidgy, like a really damp sponge or a water balloon that's only half full. And I thought, oh God, that is so gross. And I thought, that probably has to be drained.
Yeah, but you were up walking around. I mean, clearly you didn't feel good.
Yeah.
But there had just been, you ran into a wall. So it's it's probably not going to feel great for a little while, but you can move your leg, you can walk around, you can stand up. I asked you if you wanted to go to the emergency room. You said no. this was all being filmed before we were going to do a day's worth of deliveries. And because of the stay-at-home comic book day...
Stay away comic book day.
Sale that we had done that Saturday, we had a ton of deliveries to do.
25 deliveries.
We had a lot of deliveries.
That is the most we ever had in one day for just us. Well, for anybody.
So, I mean, we'd already plotted out before we had done the filming kind of where we were going through the city, and it was like, oh, this is like 3+ hours of deliveries. So you're like, no, don't need to go to the emergency room, should be fine getting in the car. And so we went and did the deliveries for the day.
And to be fair, I was miserable.
You were. But to be fair, you're always miserable on delivery day.
I also felt that we had to do it.
Oh, disagree, but okay.
But that may have been the worst thing for me to do, was to sit in the car with the knee not elevated or iced or anything.
Nope.
And have it bent at an angle, because it's the leg that I use to manipulate the pedals when driving a car.
Basically drive it around for 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
The end stop of our deliveries was we were going to stop at Challengers and River North, grab a bunch of graphic novels for restock, maybe some other stuff while we were there. But we got there, and you were parking the car, and I'd said, do you want to just stay in the car? I can just run inside and get all this stuff. And you're like, no, it's probably a good idea to get up and walk around and move it around.
Also, I had to pee.
Also, he had to pee. So we get inside the store, and I had some lists of stuff that I needed to grab from the shelves, like what we were restocking graphic novel-wise. And I was maybe 2 minutes into it when you're like, gotta go to the emergency room.
Yeah, well, by the time I got out of the car and the amount of pain I was in, the effort it took me to get into Blue from the right out front,
Yeah.
I thought, this is bad.
Yeah. So basically, like, I stopped what I was doing. You went to the bathroom. I stopped what I was doing. We immediately left River North, drove back to Bucktown, to the local emergency room.
It's still me driving.
Still you driving. But we made it there and stopped at the emergency room, which this is easily the worst time in the last 40 years of American history to need to go to the emergency room because there's a pandemic going on.
Yeah.
And they
have a lot of...
they are to capacity, more or less.
And they've got a lot of new rules and regulations. I had to wait outside. Mm-hmm. And, like, at first it was just waiting outside to be seen. Dal ran in to say, hey, my friend is hurt. He needs a wheelchair.
I couldn't even go inside. Like, I basically got to the door.
Yeah.
And they... A professional came out with a full, acrylic mask on, wanting to know what I was there for, and I said,
why are you here?
And you were in the car.
Have you been out of the country? Uh-huh. Have you been near anyone out of the country?
Uh-huh.
You have a cough.
I said, what's been going on? I have not watched the news in the last 3 months. That's
a cool mask. Are you a welder?
Uh-huh. This all seems very rude to me. Let me in. But anyway, so she asked what was going on, and I said that, my friend's in the car, and he hurt his knee, and he's going to need a wheelchair. And she said, okay, we'll get one. But again, because it's a pandemic going on, that was 5 or 6 minutes away from happening.
Yeah.
They were not, rushing out.
I'll be honest, felt like a lot longer to me.
Yeah, I mean, it was, I doubt it was even 10 minutes, but it definitely was like, and you got out of the car, which was a mistake.
Well, but staying in the car, like, nothing would have been right.
I guess. So you got out of the car. Eventually, they came and they brought the wheelchair. You sat down in it, and the wheelchair just sat outside because it's triage at that point. They can only have one person in at a time. So they needed to get whatever else they were doing done before they'd let Patrick in.
And it's funny, there are people walking up,
Uh-huh.
And they're like, I just want to check if I have, blah, 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 COVID, or they're like, you're behind him, get in line.
Yeah.
And they turn it down and say, you gotta go.
Yeah, so I basically, I was there for a little bit. I ended up parking your car. I was hanging out for a few minutes just to find out what was going on. I didn't want to just leave you on the sidewalk.
Sure.
So eventually the same professional came back out, and they said they were taking you inside, and they also told me, like, you cannot come in.
They suggested you wait in the car.
Well, no, so I'd asked, I'm like, so should I wait? Is this, how long is this? And they're like, we don't even know what's wrong with him yet. We don't know how long this is going to take. So I'm like, should I, and you'd said I should go, and they said, yeah, just go, and we'll give you a call when, like, you know, when this is all done. Like,
I'm like, no, Dal, you go back to Blue and finish what you were doing. I'll suffer alone.
And I was, it was hard for me to hear that over the squealing of tires as I was already driving away, but I think I caught it. But anyway, yeah, so it's at that point.
And now the story is going to be the rest of Dal's night.
Yeah.
So I go back to Blue.
It's 5 o'clock at night at that point. Sun hadn't even gone down. So yeah, I hop on the car, I go back to River North. I go finish the stuff I was doing there.
Take my time. Just, you know, no one's bothering me. No one's whining.
Load the car. I'm so much more efficient.
No one's going,
golly. I could finally sing along with Richie Kotzen. Did not turn the stereo on once. Yeah, then I went back to Bucktown, and we had a whole graphic novel reorder from Diamond that had shown up that morning that we hadn't unpacked yet, so I did that, and I did all of the books that we pulled from River North. I pulled from River North. Loaded everything into Shopify, loaded everything into our point of sale, did an Instagram post about it, started doing some other stuff. Because at this point I didn't know, like, I didn't want to just go home because I'm like, well, if I've got to go back out and go pick Patrick up because, you know, I don't know what's going on at this point. Your cell phone battery was incredibly low because you've been using it for navigation the entire day.
Yeah, my cell phone battery never gets low except on Wednesdays we're doing delivery, especially if I'm streaming music from my phone and using a directional program.
So I didn't want to keep like bugging you about like what's going on. What
Plus,
do you know
I didn't
yet?
know. Like you would know as soon as I know.
Yeah. And yeah, so you had mentioned that they. I think the first thing I heard from you after I dropped you off was that they had done a CT scan.
Okay.
I think that was the first thing that you had told me about.
Yeah. So I'm waiting. They bring me into the waiting room, and there's two other people in the waiting room, and it's a large waiting room. We're as far apart as possible. And as soon as I'm in the waiting room, and this may be too much detail, but I am just freezing. I wrap myself in my coat, wrap my scarf all around my head, put my gloves back on, and I was so I literally almost passed out. Mm-hmm. Well, it's because I was losing a lot of blood, but inside my body.
Mm-hmm. You were losing it from your veins into your leg.
Into my leg, yes.
Into the crevices of your leg.
So they finally brought me in the emergency room, and they looked at stuff, and my leg at that point, and spoiler alert, still now, swelled up to the size of a massive watermelon.
Yeah. It's kind of neat.
It's literally like that hook punctured as deep as you could go into the muscle without rupturing the skin.
It's basically, and I hope
because of how fast it was.
I hope this doesn't put people off a certain kind of food. If you think of like a pig in a blanket, how there's this like core tube of meat and then this like wrapping around it. Like,
well, if that wrapping was all blood,
the wrapping for you is like the swollenness of your leg.
Yeah,
it's just this one part that's like just thicker than everything above and below it.
So they did a CT scan and found out nothing was broken.
Is that the photo for this week's episode?
No. That's the kind of thing you don't spring on people.
No, definitely not.
So there's nothing was broken, but there was a hematoma, like 25 by 14 by something. Like it's a really large hematoma.
Is that millimeters or inches?
Yards.
Golly,
yeah,
it's a lot of yards. And
I'm like, hey. You know, I had a subdural hematoma from a football injury back in high school. Can we just drain it like we did that? And they said, that was subdural. That was right under the skin. We could totally have done that. This is not that. Mm-hmm. And also, this is in your entire thigh. We would have to poke you over 100 times to get all of it because the blood just goes everywhere. So, long story short, it's basically a giant bruise, but the bruise is from the bottom of my knee to the top of my hip. Mm-hmm. And it is, well, I'll just say painful.
Yeah.
And they kept me, I was definitely there overnight.
Yeah, like around 9 o'clock, I was like, are they keeping you overnight or not? Because it felt like it was starting to be too late in the day for Patrick to get released from the hospital, especially if they had done things like CT scans and stuff. Like
they needed an orthopedist to look at me. So she looked at it and said, you know, this is what it is. It'll eventually heal on its own. However, you've been losing a lot of blood, and we're worried about how much more you're losing. And I'd said previously, I'm like, where does all this blood go? Like, don't worry, you absorb it back into your body. Mm-hmm. Like, it's still yours. You'll still be using it. But it's going to harden first, and then you take it back. So I'm looking for like that. That hasn't happened yet.
Okay.
Because it's still like this is 2.5 days later, and it's still all
Sure.
swollen to all get out.
Still all bloody blood.
Yeah. So, but it's starting to bruise now, and you could definitely see the main point of impact.
Yeah.
And for how much we're focusing on my thigh, the rest of my body took some hits as well. It was like a car accident.
Yeah, I mean,
I found sore spots on me today that I'm like, oh, I didn't know those were there.
There was the obvious, you know, a 4-inch hook went multiple inches into Patrick. That's a problem. But then there was the like hands shooting out onto wire racks and knees hitting floors.
Left shoulder took a nice brunt. Both of my knees have carpet burns.
Like there was still,
but my pants are okay.
There was still a running grown man who
they're
collapsed
not torn.
onto the floor.
B, I did not shit them. C, there's no dried fluids on them, so it's all great.
That's 3 big victories right there. Let's concentrate on those.
Definitely.
Did you tell the doctors that you didn't shit your pants?
I did not. They could tell. Then I had to be visited by occupational therapist and a physical therapist, and it's like, all right, how do you get out of a chair? How do you sit onto a toilet? How do you walk upstairs? Like all these things, so they want to know that I'll be safe when they send me home.
Right.
And here, walk around the floor with these crutches. Now use this cane. Okay, you don't need either of those. You're better. You're better without them. And I want to say I could have told you that, but they can't take your word for it.
No.
I promise I don't have an opioid problem. They're not just going to believe you.
No, I wouldn't.
The real coincidental part of this is I'd just started rewatching Scrubs from the beginning.
Oh, nice.
Not paying attention, but while I have some sewing projects I've been working on to make myself some masks for the new world. So Scrubs is on in the background. Mm-hmm. But like all of the teaching hospital aspects, like when I had a doctor and an intern come in to ask me questions, I'm like, man, they're on rounds, and I'm an episode of Scrubs. I'm just a patient.
Yep.
Also trying to explain to everyone what happened.
Yeah.
I fell into a wall full of action figure hooks. That, like, to the people listening, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
They know what that is.
Action figures go on. Yeah. Action figures have this, like, you know, J-hook cut out at the top, and they have to go on a metal rod that comes out of the wall.
So what do you do? I own a comic book store. Oh, really? Where is it? Right around the corner at Challenger's, blah, blah. Oh, interesting. Oh, you don't give a shit.
No.
That's fine.
They're learning bedside manner.
That's fine. It's fine.
At least they didn't have to do the, like, oh, what's the most expensive comic you have?
That's true. So they let me go finally late last night. Dow came and got me. And I've been pretty much miserable ever since. I sound fine.
In fairness, you're always miserable.
Yes, but not usually in this much physical pain.
True. But not in no physical pain.
True. Lying down is the best when it hurts the least, but I have to stay on my back and elevate my leg, and that is uncomfortable, and I'm a person that likes to sleep on their side or roll over a lot. Can't do that.
No.
My left arm, my like rotator cuff area is all banged up, so I can't sleep how I usually do on my left side. Can't be on the right side because of the leg.
No.
And being on your back for more than like a half hour is suddenly an inconvenience. And I'd spent all day in the car.
Yeah.
And then most of the night on an emergency room bed. So my butt was like, hey, man, change position. But then also, if I lay in a bed for too long, my back is like, move around.
Yeah.
Getting up and down out of anything is not fun. And it is a constant throbbing, stabbing, and sometimes burning pain at all times. So I just want you, listener, to know that I'm doing this for you, even though I am supremely uncomfortable during this entire recording. I keep shifting. And this chair is not great because of like the wooden frame where my thigh is resting on the bottom. Normally these chairs are great. I love these chairs.
Sure.
Not a fan.
I'm sorry.
Of it currently. But anyway, that has been my week, and that means Dow has to work every day again.
Yep.
And I'm also wondering...
Like I said to you, there was a nice week and a half.
Yeah.
Where we were trading off again, and it was like, oh, this is very cool. Like, I have time for projects and stuff. And I had, stupidly, set up some projects for myself to do at home over the days I was thinking I would have off that I now do not have off.
Well, we don't know how long it's going to take me to recover. Probably longer than we expect.
Yeah, I think the doctors had told you maybe 5 to 7 days or something.
That was the ER docs?
Yeah.
Not the orthopedic surgeon?
No.
Who said, expect it to be swollen for a long time.
Yeah, so we'll see kind of what's available. That's another way of saying, I don't know if we're going to be doing deliveries on the 13th. We're gonna wait and see on that one.
I'm also worried about, I need to be back in working condition
On the 19th.
on the 19th to go get the new books.
18th or 19th. Who even knows?
Yeah, that's true. Because Diamond announced today that their target date of May 20th is no longer a target date, it's the date.
It's happening.
Books start coming out again Wednesday, May 20th.
But also, DC was mentioning in a DC email, because maybe we're skipping ahead here, but DC is intending to keep its new release day as Tuesday going forward, regardless of what Diamond's plans are. That they are working with distributors to make sure that retailers can get DC product on Mondays. But I don't know how that's even feasible
When
for
they
Diamond
say
to do.
working with their distributors, I assume they mean DCBS and...
I'll quote it.
no, I read it. I know exactly what it says, but I think that they didn't mean Diamond.
I didn't read it as being 2 of 3 distributors. DC is working with our distribution partners for a targeted Monday delivery date to give you sufficient time to prepare for Tuesday on sale if you choose to participate in it. I mean, they don't make anything in here sound specific to 1 or 2 distributors.
Well, since this information came out, you and I haven't talked, so we're talking about this for the first time.
Yes, hello.
I assume we're just going to stay with Wednesdays.
Yeah,
It doesn't make any sense to go through all that extra effort and then just put out the DC comics
Correct.
and just pull Club for DC books?
Yeah.
And then do it all again the next day?
Yeah.
No way.
Nope. So yeah, since we're still going to be receiving our DC product at the same time as all of our other comic books through Diamond, I would be reluctant to do any sort of staggered release window. That seems like it only helps DC as a publisher. It does not necessarily help our customers. It doesn't help us as a store.
Even if we get all the product on Mondays, it's not worth it.
No.
It's not. It doesn't. There's no way to do a double release window.
Yeah, and on top of that, it's not useful for anyone to do it because, again, it helps DC. Like DC's thing, because they talk about this in the email they sent out. One of DC's reasons for doing this is to be able to unify all of their promotion for all of their channels. What used to happen was if, like, we're going to use May 20th as an example. If DC released a graphic novel to comic shops on May 20th, it would then be available in book markets, non-Diamond distributors, on May 26th, the following Tuesday. Now, it's going to be available in every channel May 26th, that Tuesday. So there is no like 6-day exclusivity window based on the way the different markets release product.
It's just easier to sync them both up, they say.
And once again, this is a thing where that's super helpful for DC, not that helpful for anybody else.
No, nobody else.
The big problem that we would have with doing a Tuesday release day for DC and only DC is that, frankly, we don't do enough business in DC to make that worthwhile for people to have to come out on multiple days. Like, that either means that people only come on Tuesdays, which means they get this week's DC product and then last week's everything else product, or they just come on Wednesdays as normal, where they get everything for the week within 24 hours of its release. I assume that most of our customers, subscription or otherwise, would do the latter. There may be a key book or something that people would want to get on a Tuesday, the various punchline style appearances. If that's still a thing in the new world, I don't know.
I hope it isn't.
DC sure as shit seems to think it is because, man, a whole bunch of the email that they sent this week was just punchline stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, Punchline's going to be in Harley Quinn 75. Oh, Punchline's going to have her origin in the Joker special. And it's just like, as always, if DC manages to luck into a hit, boy, they're going to drive that thing into the ground. Marvel's no different, but
No.
DC feels a lot thirstier about it, I think, because it's so rare for them.
DC, you thirsty.
They really are. But anyway, the DC Tuesday thing, I wish that it felt for even a second like someone else's best interests were taken into account.
Yeah, it's
it
not
only
in
helps
any way,
DC as a publisher.
Hey,
no
this
one
is
else.
the best for the industry.
Nobody else. Like they can't even pretend that it's anything else.
Hey,
Like,
Dal, hypothetically,
uh-huh.
if you could control what day of the week was new release day,
Uh-huh.
any day of the week,
Sure.
what would you pick?
Friday.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Is that because video games and
Everything else comes out on Fridays.
music comes? Well, books come out on Tuesdays.
I guess, yeah. I don't even think about that, though, to be honest with you.
Do you think that...
And even movies don't really come out on Friday anymore. Most of them come out on Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think that new releases on Fridays would kill Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday sales?
It's possible.
Like, I think if everything shifted to Tuesdays, that would make Thursday and Friday a lot worse.
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, and I think every retailer would have a different take on this based on what their own foot traffic is like. I mean, some stores have pretty evenly spread out traffic across 7 days or maybe clustered around weekends because of what neighborhoods they're in or how their cities or states operate. Some stores are live and die on new release day. Like, that's the day and everything else is just secondary. I think for us, I think we'd be... It would just shift around some days. Like, would Monday and Tuesday be slow? Yeah, but I don't think they'd be slower necessarily. You know? Like, I think... like, basically... The dead day would stop to be Tuesday and it might start being Thursday.
Yeah.
But Thursday's already a pretty dead day, or was a dead day before the pandemic.
Like, I think, regardless of what new release day is, the amount of money that comes in during the span of the week is the same. It's just split up differently.
Yeah, we're a week-to-week business, not a day-to-day business, so I don't think it really matters. I think having it be Fridays could make a kind of sense. I don't think it really matters, to be perfectly honest. But certainly having things staggered through the week is the worst scenario.
Yeah.
That's the one where it's like, how... Like, again, DC's thing of like, oh, it unifies DC's promotion. Cool. It de-unifies the whole market's promotion, because now new release day isn't a day. It's Tuesday for DC product in some stores and Wednesday for DC product and everybody else in other stores. Like, that, we had just reached a point where the market had sort of decided, like, hey, if you're doing a midnight release event, they don't want to have to parcel out different companies' products being available or not. If you're doing a midnight release, you can do it for everything, because it's just easier for stores to deal with. It's better for consumers. It's better for stores. It's better for all the publishers to not have to constantly chime in and go, yes, it's again fine if you do this. So to do that and then have DC be like, no, we need to have a completely separate way of doing this. Like, again, great for DC's promotion to be able to say it's available in stores everywhere on May 26th, for example. But even then, that's not true, because not every store is going to do that. DC even says in their FAQ, it's up to individual stores to decide if they want to keep doing it on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. Like, so the whole like promotional thing, but you can't verify that stores are actually able to get it in and sell it on Tuesdays.
Yeah.
You don't know that. Like,
I can tell you that if nothing changes the way in regards to the way we receive our books, I'm not ready to sell DC product until 6-7 p.m. on a Tuesday.
Yeah,
just not ready.
Yeah, because that's if we're still getting our product on a Tuesday, like, we don't want to have to sell DC product if we're rushing to get it out of the boxes.
Yeah.
If we don't know, like, being able to get product on Tuesday to sell it on Wednesday means we can guarantee, short of a catastrophic failure on some part of the shipping
chain
workflow, that when we open at 11 a.m. on Wednesday, the new books are on the shelves and ready for subscribers. Like, everything is in stock and ready to go. If we're still getting stuff from Diamond on Tuesday and DC's like, you can sell it on Tuesday, it's like, well, the earliest I'm going to be able to get that out of the boxes is maybe 1 o'clock, and then but actually pulling for club and getting things on the shelves could be 5 or 6 o'clock at night.
And there's
so when
no
are people
way
supposed to come by when we close at 7?
Yeah, there's no way Diamond has the ability to split up. Oh, these boxes are just your DC books, and still being able to get us books on the regular time because you're adding a tremendous amount of work on their end. So I wouldn't expect that at all.
Also, they're adding a tremendous amount of extra freight costs because suddenly now you're not getting a box with all this stuff in it. You're getting a few extra boxes that have different amounts of things. So there's going to be a little bit to a lot of extra freight costs to make sure that you can get the DC stuff on Monday and then everything else on Tuesday. And for stores like us that pick up, I'm not going out to the Expeditors 2 days a week.
No, definitely not.
I'm not going on Monday morning to get a box and a half of DC stuff and then going on Tuesday to get 6 boxes of everybody else. That's not worth my time.
It's really not, especially with how little DC sells for us.
And again, that's the thing. Like, if this was something where, you know, I'm going to have 50 people coming in every Tuesday looking for this stuff, yeah, it's worth my time. But the amount of people who would be motivated enough to get just their DC stuff every Tuesday, like across 2 stores, I can probably count it on 2 hands. Like, most people are not going to care enough.
When all you'd have to wait is a day.
Exactly. It's not like the books are not going to be there the next day. Again, not counting like speculator-style books where there's going to be people who are like, you know, the same folks that are outside the door Wednesday at 11 because this book is going for $30 online. And honestly, if I got to put those people off a day, fine.
I have always loved the idea of the Wednesday Warrior. I was a Wednesday Warrior before I worked in a comic shop. I would get my books, like, not the second the store opened, but when I could. Like, when I was in college, it was between classes or when I had the time. And when the books were available at the comic shop, I would get them when I could. It's the earliest I could. I like the idea. I like knowing, oh, they're out, I can get them. Okay, I'm going to get them. And I like the enthusiasm of the people that show up to midnight releases or any extra events where you have to put in a little extra effort just to be able to get your books early or to be part of something that's a little faster. But I don't in any way resent anybody who doesn't do it.
No.
It's definitely... All right, that slipper's lost. I can't get it back. It's too far away. I don't resent anybody for not doing that.
No.
Like, we're just happy you're buying your books at all. And
yeah, I mean, I wouldn't do most of that stuff.
Right. And sure, it makes us think about doing less midnight releases before the pandemic.
Oh, yeah. I mean, certainly now we're not.
Yeah.
And DC had a thing where there was supposed to be a midnight release party for...
The Joker 80th anniversary special.
I thought it was Dark
Knight's Death Metal. Yeah, Death Metal
yeah,
number 1.
Dark Knight's Death Metal. But now they've said, like, they will still be doing, like, the midnight release cover, which we were already going to be doing. But stores do not have to do a midnight release for that.
So, are midnight releases for them between Monday and Tuesday now?
Who knows?
What is a midnight release? Because what's the point of doing it on Tuesday if it was already available?
Yeah, I would assume Monday night then. But yeah,
who wants to do that? It's the start of your work week.
Yeah, it's the whole thing is insane. I would love, and I've wanted this for a lot of things, but I don't think anything in comics I've wanted more than for there to at some point be an oral history of what DC leadership was like during the coronavirus. I gotta know how some of these decisions are made because some of them are so, at best, disruptive and at worst, hostile to the comics industry that I gotta know, like, who thought this up, who suggested it, who okayed it, what was the argument against it that failed. Like, these things are so insane to me because they are just, it's like the if you will, the Dark Universe DC.
There you go.
Where it's just like, oh, this is DC if they were
in the dark multiverse.
If they didn't care about the comics industry at all, if they were just, instead of doing the things that best ensured the long-term health of the industry, if they were just like, no, we have to look out for ourselves. You can all fend for yourselves now. Like, that, so much of this, because even the messaging on it is so just like a shrug of like, this is why we're doing it. Like, oh, that's a bad reason. And you didn't even explain it in a way that didn't make it sound like you were only protecting your own interests. And they're just like, yeah.
Yeah, we don't care.
Yeah. Okay, great. It's, yeah. like when I know people in DC's like retailer division and their marketing department, and they're not bad at their jobs. So the fact that like the messaging is so unhelpful.
How would you like to be the guy that has to present all this to the public?
Yeah, like that's what makes me so curious what the decision making is like on this, because even some of the ways that they're coming out and talking about this definitely feels like they know what they're saying is bad and bad for the community, even though it's good for DC in theory, and they cannot come up with a way to spin it. It's impossible to spin it. So they're just like, here's what we're doing. Yes, it is good for us and bad for you.
Those poor bastards.
Yeah, I mean it's a shit job to have in a very shitty time. But yeah, oh my god, in a year or 2 or 10, I would love to get the story behind how this all happened, because it is so crazy.
Well, it isn't just DC that had some interesting information this week.
Nope.
We have a little bit of Marvel news left over from last week we just didn't get to. And then that actually nicely dovetails into this week's information.
Yeah.
Marvel, for the first month of them resuming publication, is going to be splitting their weeks between single-issue comics and graphic novels.
Yeah.
So the first week they're back, the May 20th week, it'll be single-issue comics. The next week will just be graphic novels and collections. Week after that, single-issue comics. Week after that, graphic novels. Week after that, I think we're back to normal.
Yeah, I think by the first or second week of July, I think things become comics and graphic novels on the same week. Now, that said, the comic releases for each week that they're releasing comics, very slim. Like, we're talking under 10 titles. A lot of stuff that's coming out over that month is basically what would be like maybe the last... I'm trying to think of what it would be. It's like 2 weeks of April that are getting spread out to like 6 weeks of releases.
Wow, that much?
Basically. There's not a lot of stuff coming out.
As someone who has to pay for that, I appreciate it. I'm a little worried about having to get 2 weeks of product in before we can actually be open for people coming into the store.
Sure.
At this point, we assume it's June 1st. We don't know for sure. That may change.
Yeah.
I don't expect it to change, but it's going to be a hassle for us to be getting this product and not being able to distribute it as widely as possible because people can't come in.
Sure.
And especially if we stop doing deliveries, that is 1/3 of the way people were getting books from us, so that changes dramatically as well.
Yeah, which we haven't finished talking about yet, so we'll have to wait and see if what we're doing with that. No decision has been made.
Right. I feel like I'm leaning towards deliveries are done. I mean, I'm hoping we can still do next week, if we have any.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't talked to any of the people that were going to be maybe helping us out to see if we can... The big problem, not to digress away from the Marvel stuff, but the big problem that we're having internally with figuring out how to do deliveries going forward is that being open on Wednesday for curbside pickup and potentially walk-in traffic is way more important to us than doing deliveries.
Yeah.
And basically, being open in the store means we can't do deliveries, Patrick and I.
Correct.
So we would have to figure out who else could take that on and what their availability is. And beyond that, like, if people are even interested in it. Like, I assume some people are still not going to want to come to a store in June, even if they're allowed to. So we want to be able to figure out a way to help them out. But, you know, if it's not enough people, or on the other hand, if it's too many people, then things start to get really dicey. So we're going to try and figure that out. I'd like us to do it, but I don't know if it's reasonable or not. So yeah, Wednesday, May 27th, which is the first week of releases of new books for Marvel, because the May 20th stuff is going to be stuff that was already in the pipeline.
Yeah, stuff that would have been the April 1st.
Yeah, it's boxes of stuff that have been sitting in a Diamond warehouse for the last 7 weeks. First, Wednesday, May 27th, Amazing Spider-Man 43, Avengers 33, Marauders 10, Dr. Aphra 1, and Venom 25. That's it for comics.
Okay.
It starts to grow beyond that. The 2 weeks later, it's 6 books. Wednesday, June 24th, is the first week of comics and graphic novels. And there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 comics. Then July 1st becomes another week of just graphic novels. July 8th is comics and graphic novels again, and so forth. So by the time you hit like the third Wednesday in July, the expectation is that things will be a little bit more back to normal. For those keeping track at home, I'm not clear on what's going to be in the May 20th shipment, but looking at the schedule, there will not be a new issue of X-Men until at the earliest July 15th.
Okay.
There will be other mutant books.
Just not X-Men proper.
X-Men, not. I like the idea of them staggering stuff, of them not overloading the market. Marvel certainly, with the amount of comics they publish and graphic novels they publish, could have just turned the fire hose on and released way too much stuff for a market that has no idea what sort of customer base is going to be there. And again, we order non-returnable, so DC and I think some other publishers, DC, Boom, Image, I can't remember who else, Dark Horse maybe, are doing returnability through a certain window of dates to let the industry kind of get back on its feet. And if people aren't coming in, these books don't necessarily drag us under. Marvel went a different way with it, where they did
an increased discount.
An increased discount for the books that we had received on the last week of releases while the stores were getting shut down. So basically, like, they weren't making anything returnable, but they were saying, hey, if you got caught with stuff, you made more on the books that you could sell. So it'll balance out. And then they also said, hey, for the next couple weeks after that, we're going to give you an increased discount, which I believe they're doing for May 20th because that stuff was already in the pipeline. But everything coming out May 27th and later got new final order cutoffs.
Yeah.
Which means we could adjust our numbers, which means Marvel said, oh, then we don't have to do anything extra.
Nope.
So not only are they not doing returnability, they're also not doing an increased discount for that product. They're just saying, hey, you tell us what you want as far as copies. That's the best we're going to do for you.
I will say that getting that extra discount added to the invoices we got this week, which is basically all of our reorders or some of our reorders during the quarantine time, was a big help.
Yeah, it was pretty nice to see a big old credit on those invoices.
Yeah.
But yeah, the idea of doing comics and graphic novels all spread out, I like it. I like a slower restart to the market, not just for, how many people might be coming in, but also we don't know what we're going to be allowed to do and how we're going to be allowed to do it. And for a lot of stores that are going to be having trouble with building up their staffing again, there's a lot of stores that are going to have to be kind of working with a skeleton crew to start with, and having smaller orders show up is definitely an easier way to get them back on their feet than, if you had 3 or 4 employees normally working through a new shipment of stuff. To have to do it with 2 employees, it's better to have half the size of the shipment than to go along with that.
Agreed.
So I think that could be a help. But yeah, we eventually found out that Marvel was rescinding their offers of increased discounts after we'd heard the staggered shipping schedule. But I like the staggered shipping schedule. I thought that was a very solid move from Marvel.
It is a help. It will help us out.
Yeah. Less helpful.
Yes. Less helpful is their new Digital First initiative, which they just announced this week.
Yep.
Where they've taken, 9 titles?
Yeah, they're going to be releasing some books digitally May 13th and 20th.
Okay.
As those are weeks where I guess they were not planning on new product coming out.
Because technically the 20th is the stuff that's already been coming out.
Yeah.
But what they're doing is they're taking pre-existing titles, mainly miniseries, that are probably underperforming for them.
Yeah.
And making them digital first, kind of digital only, but not.
Yeah.
What they're doing is, like, for example, Hawkeye Freefall, or Star, or Ant-Man. Those miniseries are now digital first for single issues, and then not going to be printed until the collections. So if you were reading Hawkeye Freefall, and you got, what are there, 4 out so far?
Yeah.
3 or 4?
Bring up their list.
Out of 6?
4 came out already.
So if you want to read the final 2 issues, you have to buy them digitally, or buy the collection, because they will not be a 5 or a 6 in print by themselves.
Yeah.
So you have to buy a collection that has 4 issues you've already bought to finish the story.
Yeah.
Star is up to number 2 or 3. Ant-Man's on 2.
So the 8 comics they announced are Ant-Man 4, Avengers of the Wastelands 4, Ghost Spider 9, Ravencroft 4,
Spider.
2020 Ironheart number 1, Marvel's Spider-Man The Black Cat Strikes number 4, Hawkeye Freefall 5, and Star number 4. those will all have collections later in the year. But yeah, if you already spent $14,
was Hawkeye Freefall only 5 issues?
5 or 6, I don't remember. But if you already spent $16 on Hawkeye comics, you're not going to feel super great about spending $20 on a Hawkeye collection later in the year to get the remaining chapters.
Nope.
That's probably going to feel like you got ripped off.
Yep.
And for people who are collecting print issues and or don't like digital comics, the ability to pay full price for digital comics to finish off a story that you'd already started, also not going to feel super great.
No.
Like, I get the idea of Marvel saying, hey, in the current contracted market, it does not make sense for us to try and publish comics where the print runs are probably going to be so low it's not worth publishing.
I completely understand that.
I get it. I totally get it. And there's not a great solution to this, but this one where midway through a series it's becoming digital first with a collection later, it just feels kind of scummy. I don't know. Like, I don't know what the better solution would be. Like, the other options you could do, one, just not publishing anymore. Just saying, like, Ant-Man was 3 issues, that's it, we're done. Which certainly, if you already commissioned an issue 4 and 5 that are sitting in a drawer somewhere, that means Marvel's taking the hit on it, and I'm sure they don't love that. And certainly for some people, being able to have an option of being able to finish the story is better than never getting the end of it under any circumstance.
Yeah.
The other thing you could do is just wait until the market's ready to come back more and then publish these comics when there's a more robust market. But at that point, who knows how many fans would still be around for it. Like, if you're only selling 8,000 copies of Ghost Spider or whatever, maybe less, I'm pulling a number out of thin air, and then you take 6 months off, how many of those 8,000 are still going to be there?
Right.
Half? Less?
No offense to Sean and Maguire.
No, it's the nature of all of these kind of sequential stories. The longer the break, the more likely people are to just forget it even existed. And these are books that are already dealing with 2 months off, if not more.
Yeah. Personally, I'm most saddened for Hawkeye and Ant-Man, because those were
Ant-Man for sure
series that I was reading and enjoying.
Yeah, Ant-Man especially, because it's like, it was a 5-issue series. You know, you were 60% done.
Yeah.
You could just, like...
Isn't it 3?
They did 3 so far.
Okay.
How am I going to find out what Pamela's up to? I think...
No, yeah, there'll be no more recap pages. They won't do Pamela recap pages in the trade.
I mean, they probably already commissioned them. I don't know. I wonder if this would feel a little better if they weren't doing the digital comics and just moved to the collection. Like, I feel like that would be... It would feel less... Like, it's a little bit like the DC distribution thing. Where it's like, if you just said, we're going to wait, that sucks, but I can kind of see it. But if you're like, we're going to wait, or we're going to force you to buy it this other way that you don't want to, so you don't miss out and don't have to wait, that option doesn't feel like an option. It feels like you're twisting my arm in a way. Do you know?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But I mean, like, I don't think they have a clear plan for how they want to do digital, because I look at Jessica Jones' Blind Spot as the example.
Right.
Jessica Jones Blind Spot was a 6-issue miniseries that they released digital first. Mm-hmm. Then they released it in a trade. Mm-hmm. Great. Fine.
Right, sure.
I have no problem with that. Then they released it in single issues.
Yep.
After the trade was already out.
After the trade.
And it was so weird to me that we had a subscriber like get that because they want the single issues, which I understand.
There
but
was,
you could buy the series.
There was one subscriber we talked out of it because we're like, we can just sell you the whole story right now.
Yeah.
And they bought it. It was like, great.
It's the same way that people signed up for, like, Michael Marici's Reincarnate, mm-hmm. when we already had the graphic novel, or Dan Doherty's Touching Evil,
sure.
which was Source Point Press was reprinting, mm-hmm. when he'd self-published it, and we had his self-published graphic novels.
Yeah.
You can just buy those right now.
Right now.
So it's so weird. But, I mean, you know, people want the format they want. That's fine.
And, again, I think a lot of people, even offering them, like, the digital one, it's like they wanted it as single comics, and they've already made an investment that is basically wasted now. Because either they have to get it digitally, which they may not be a fan of that format, and they, you know, for people who like hard copy comics and file them away in their back issues, like, well, now you're not going to be able to do that for these comics. You're going to have them as a digital license through Comixology. Or you're going to have to get the graphic novel where, you know, again, now you spent $16 on Hawkeye, and I got to spend another $20 to get the final couple chapters. Like, that's...
I had a Marvel.com account for something. I don't remember what, because I never used it. Mm-hmm. But I got an email today saying, hey, store.marvelunlimited.com or whatever is going away. And from now on, if you want your digital comics, you have to get them through Comixology.
Yeah. The other thing for these issues, I mean, for us specifically, we're going to be losing out on the sales of the people who are subscribed to it. And, it certainly makes us feel like kind of dummies for promoting stuff like Ant-Man and Hawkeye, even though I love those stories, because now we can't sell those final chapters.
How do you think Matthew Rosenberg feels? He went out and did all these videos for stores. He did a video for us.
Yeah, and now
when
it's
he was sick
and now
over Christmas.
People can't go buy them in shops.
Yeah.
And
also, how many of the customers who read those books know that?
Right. Yeah. We will have to be telling a few people, like, hey, by the way.
Is it worth it to send emails to those, like the people who get Star, and say, hey, FYI, it's done?
What we'll probably do when we do the next order pack, and we send out an email to all of our subscribers, we'll list stuff like that. Like, I'll probably have to write up a much longer kind of June, late May, early June, post-coronavirus shutdown email to subscribers where it's like, here are the things that have been going on. Like, here's what's changing with publishers, here's what's changing with release dates, all that sort of stuff. But one of the things about this that sucks for stores is that stores like us who really were excited about certain miniseries stocked up on early issues to make sure that people who picked up later ones could
so we didn't sell out right away.
And now, basically, those 8 titles that I just listed, sales are dead. I
feel like the responsible thing for a publisher to do would be to make those issues returnable.
At least for miniseries.
However, that's not a responsible publisher we're talking about.
Marvel is definitely not going to make them returnable. Like, I mean, look, maybe they will. Maybe Marvel will have an uncharacteristic change in their behavior in the same way that DC has had an uncharacteristic change in their behavior. But Marvel's could be for the better.
I was going to say, wait, we don't want that.
Marvel could be like, yep, we kind of screwed you on this one. We definitely had you get behind stuff like Star, and then we did not publish the final chapters, which means you have wasted your money on keeping issues 1, 2, and 3 of Star in stock. But I don't know.
You bought the second printing of Star number 1? Fools.
Uh-huh. Hey.
Ironically, I believe they've already solicited a second printing to Star number 4.
Excellent. Good.
That's a joke.
In
but
digital?
Still.
Digital only?
Yeah.
Digital only second print?
I hope they start putting those in previews. Digital only. Order now.
Yeah.
What?
So yeah, that was a bit of a disappointment, but I mean, it's that one beyond the digital part. Like, it's just a function of where the industry is at. Like, you can't publish some of this stuff, so it's either cancel it entirely or figure out a way to get that material to market. And to be fair, like, they are eventually doing a graphic novel, so like, selfishly, like, I'll get to read the end of Ant-Man at some point because I can read graphic novels without buying them. But more than that, I'll be able to sell that goddamn Ant-Man graphic novel forever.
Because it's one great story.
It's one great story. It's so good. It's like Dylan Burnett and Zeb Wells kill on it. So, yeah, pretty excited to have that in a graphic novel that I can just sell to people. But it is a bummer for the people that we promoted this book to. That we said, hey, sign up for Ant-Man. It's real good. And they did. And now they're 60% done with the story that they have to figure out how they're going to get the last 40%, if at all, or just never read it. So that sucks. That's a bummer.
You know it's not a bummer?
What's not?
People who follow us and subscribe to this on Patron.
Oh, that's cool.
And sometimes they send us questions or statements.
Oh, like what?
For example, we talked about Subway episode or so ago. Mm-hmm. And patron listener Joseph Coco sent us an image of the current Subway COVID-19 logo. And you know how it says Subway Eat Fresh? Mm-hmm. The word fresh was replaced with the word garbage. To which I say, how dare you, sir? Uh-huh. You're talking to two people who literally just ate Subway before this recording?
But recognize it as garbage.
Yeah, it's fine. I mean, you yourself said, why would I make myself a Subway sandwich?
Yeah, oh my God, no.
We talked about action figures episode or two ago and how what you do with them. And comics artist Jason Murr had responded saying that first of all, he's redone his office and his setup in this time and redone his action figure display. And he kind of does a cross between you and I.
Okay.
When a figure is new, he'll take it out of the package and play with it and leave it at his desk.
Sure.
From there, it goes to his display shelf, where once it is placed and posed, it's there forever.
That's what I do with my Kamen Rider Fig Arts.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even really play with them. They're so high-end that they're so kind of finicky almost, that I don't feel like I can mess with it without potentially breaking it.
Sure.
So I do a little pose, and then they go up on a shelf, and then they commemorate that I finished a Kamen Rider series. Like Transformers, though, yeah, like I'll leave those on a table to kind of fuss around with for a few days. Then they go into the kind of temporary staging area.
Okay.
Where it's just new figures. So if I want to grab something, mess around with stuff, it's at hand, and then that stuff eventually either goes on long-term display or goes into storage. Like that's my process.
Sure. Jason's post is also accompanied by photos of his setup.
Oh, cool.
He has one shelf of just Simpsons figures.
Oh, neat.
Yeah, and then a whole bunch of Marvel Legends and things. Jason also did a great series during this time of left side of the face profiles of Spider-Man characters.
Okay.
He did like 20 characters.
Cool.
It's pretty great. And he's like, I think I need to stop now, otherwise I'm doing stuff like Swarm or,
Swarm's great. He's Ant-Man's best friend.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. I like the Ant-Man. And then we got a couple of notes from Chris Burton.
Okay.
First about action figures. And his I can read because I printed out.
Cool.
You guys are talking about action figures, and I'm pretty much just a display guy. I have a modest Marvel Legends collection mainly. But I was wondering if you guys might have a good recommendation for figure stands. I've tried a handful of different ones, and nothing seems quite right. And my answer to that, Chris, is exactly what you said. None of them work for what you need it for. Like, DC made a bunch that were just for the peg holes in DC figures, but they were just discs with a peg, and you had to buy a bag full of them, and they never quite worked right. Mm-hmm. And then these third-party ones, which are like little cranes with posts and hooks. And
those are Bandai makes the Tamashi Spirit ones. And those are really good for like the high-end figures, but I don't know if they're super great for like Marvel Legends and stuff because the cost of the stand starts to approach the cost of the figure.
Yeah.
And the things that you would use it for, like the additional like effects pieces and stuff, I think most people don't necessarily want that. They want something that's just going to keep a figure in a somewhat dynamic pose, but rigid. Like they don't need it to do a lot of stuff.
I've stopped buying Marvel Legends figures with capes because they're so unbalanced they'll never stand.
Sure.
Unless the cape is furled at the end and it can prop it up by itself. But yeah, we've not found a good answer that works for either of us.
Yeah, I don't really have like anything that usually Transformers don't usually need them because they're square and blocky enough for a lot of them that they don't really need a stand, and they're so irregularly sized and shaped that there isn't like a peg hole you can put in the foot because some of them don't have feet. The Fig Arts ones are again something that would maybe use like a post or a gripping crane sort of thing, but I don't usually use them. Some of the figures I got were from the Rider Kicks 20th anniversary Zeo line, and those had Ride Watch bases. But even those were just like flat plastic acrylic pieces that it didn't feel like they were doing anything for it. They were just decorative.
So weird. I cannot feel this part of my thigh at all.
It's full of hard blood.
Oh, God. I mean, I can tell I'm touching because of my fingertips, but I can't. My thigh doesn't feel anything.
It's probably for the best.
And any of the figures that I have that have all these extra accessories and come with the crane hooks, I just keep it all in the box.
Yeah. So sorry, Chris. If anybody out there maybe knows, you can shoot us an email if you've got a suggestion for Chris on how he can cost effectively and reasonably get his figure standing up straight.
But wait, there's more from Chris Burton.
More? How?
Dal asked a question wondering what your listeners want as far as content.
Oh, okay.
And I do think you guys do a quite thorough job talking about running the stores in the comics industry. Therefore, I personally don't mind when you guys go off on tangents about wrestling or whatever.
Or Patrick's injuries.
Well, that's comic related. I personally know nothing about wrestling, but you guys typically talk about it in an engaging manner, so I still find it interesting. Thanks very much, Chris. We appreciate that.
Thanks, Chris. AEW is real good right now.
So I was talking to a comics industry professional today, and I will not say who. And out of the blue, that person said, "What do you think of Chris Jericho?" And I said,
real quick, without giving me a name,
"Yeah,
is this creator a Wrestle Boy?"
No.
Okay, go on. What do we think of Chris Jericho? Like as a person or as an entertainer?
I told you the question as it was presented to me.
Oh, okay.
So I said, I think he is on fire.
Yeah.
I think he's brilliant.
He's maybe as good as he's ever been as a heel.
Yeah,
right now.
his ring work is not what it used to be, but it can't. Guy's 50 years old.
I was weirdly thinking about this when I was walking today. about how kind of perfect the Inner Circle is as a faction, because each person has a very specific physical role within the group.
Right. Which is why they haven't added anybody.
Right, because you don't need it. And it's weird because it doesn't feel like it's built out of getting people over so much as like, okay, you're starting with Chris Jericho as the center of the Inner Circle. He is the mouthpiece. He's the mastermind.
He is also...
Le Champion.
Thank you.
And always will be.
He doesn't need a belt for that.
Hopefully someday he'll allow fans back into AEW events, but I don't know if it's going to happen anytime soon.
I understand. I understand why he did it. I respect his decision to ban fans from arenas.
He had to put his foot down. But you start with him, and then you kind of build out, and it's like, okay, well, Santana and Ortiz are a tag team. So you have the Inner Circle represented within the tag team division. You've got Sammy Guevara, who's a cruiserweight-style high flyer.
And the Spanish God.
I think he's a Spanish God.
How dare you? He is the Spanish God.
I don't think he even speaks Spanish.
Did you even ask Dasha? Did you even do your research before you start announcing things?
But you get him kind of representing that end of the roster. You know, he's the guy that wrestles like your Darby Allins, your like a Kenny Omega or somebody like that.
Sure.
And then you've got Jake Hager, who's the powerhouse. He's the big man. He wrestles the big man style against other big man wrestlers, or to be the enforcer for Chris Jericho. So all of these guys have a very specific, necessary part that covers everything, which is why the only thing I've been saying that they've been missing is add Britt Baker. Have a woman to be the Inner Circle's representation within the women's part of the company. But I mean, I guess it's maybe not where they want to go with it, and I don't know how much help Britt needs anymore. I think she still needs some, but she doesn't need as much as she used to. But yeah, the Inner Circle, like built around Jericho, has a real clear, defined role for everybody in the group, and that's great.
So getting back to my answer, I had said that everything he does is wildly entertaining, whether it be commentary, whether it be vignettes he films.
He did a month's worth of commentary.
Yeah.
How crazy is that?
And it was great.
It was great.
And this creator said, oh, okay. And I'm like, why do you ask? Well, it turns out that Chris Jericho was recently on Joe Bob Briggs, and he brought along his favorite horror movie, and it's not only his favorite horror movie, it's his favorite movie, called Bloodsucking Freaks.
Okay.
And he was the co-host of that episode of the Joe Bob show, whatever it's called. I don't know. I'm not a Joe Bob guy. Sorry, everybody.
Oops.
Something about a drive-in. I don't know. And even like did a theme song for it in a music video. And apparently the movie is so misogynistic and vile and so just horrible toward women.
That Jericho's problematic now?
Well, in this person's eyes, yeah.
Sure.
They said they had to turn the movie off after 20 minutes.
Okay.
And then somebody else said, you're lucky you did it because it got way worse.
Oof.
And they wondered, how could, in 2020, Chris Jericho be touting this movie as this masterpiece?
Well, a couple of reasons why. First, Chris Jericho's in his 50s.
Yeah.
So, not to denigrate against a lot of people in their 50s, I know I have close personal friends who are in their 50s, and they're not all bad people.
You mean like Mike Lee?
But a lot of them are bad people because they reach a certain age
You mean
and
like
they're
Mike Lee?
These things that they were fans of 30 years ago that the culture might have tolerated. Nowadays, the culture really doesn't, and instead of them kind of recognizing that and trying to analyze that and grow from it, instead kind of double down and say, no, the culture changed and got dumb and bad. What I like is still
personally am a huge fan of the IT crowd, as is WWE wrestler Sheamus.
Sure.
But I can tell you now that it's very cringeworthy looking back, because when it was made like a decade ago, things were different, and it's wildly homophobic.
Yeah, and I mean,
just it doesn't hold up. But like a lot of the jokes, the tech jokes do. Other stuff just like, oh, guys, it makes rewatching it hard.
And there is something to be said for people who are able to recognize the failings of something that maybe were not apparent to them years ago, and still finding some value in it. Like, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I'm a fan of the Kamen Rider franchise, and that is a thing that is designed...
I was almost going to say, what is that? But then you would tell us, and I'd never get out of here.
Small Japanese children, to get them to ask their parents to buy them toys. But within that, the storytelling cannot... It's not necessarily great about how it uses women in its stories. It is definitely a little regressive. And I'm watching a lot of the older stuff, by which I mean early 2000s, and boy, is it more regressive then. Definitely a big problematic blind spot for that franchise, but I'm able to recognize that and not apologize for it or ignore it, but say, okay, yes, but there's other things that have merit and value. Like, I don't, if anyone looked at that and said, oh, I can't watch it because of that, I'd be like, I get it. I don't blame you. Sure. And I would not recommend it to people that are looking for strong stories about three-dimensional women. They've got some strong stories and they've got three-dimensional women, but those things do not always line up. So it's possible that Jericho is a fan of this movie, while at the same time recognizing, hey, this is maybe, you know, if you're being kind, outsider art, and if you're being unkind, massively problematic storytelling. So maybe that's it. But also, yeah, and wrestling as an industry, as a sport, as a form of entertainment, definitely has some people in it that are not great with women.
Yeah, and ultimately, you don't have to like a person to admire their work.
No.
We've talked about this many times in the past. It gets harder and harder to separate a performer from their performance or an artist from their art, but it can still be done.
Yeah.
Currently, I think Chris Jericho is one of the most entertaining things about professional wrestling.
Yeah. Although that said, I mean, I would not... Everyone draws their own lines, is a thing I believe. If someone feels like Chris Jericho's favorite movie being horribly, offensively misogynistic is a problem, and it keeps them from being able to enjoy Chris Jericho's work in and around the wrestling ring, I don't blame them for not wanting to be a part of his performances or a company that he works for.
At no point did I want to say to this person, no, you're wrong, here's why. I'm like, hey, this is why I like Chris Jericho the wrestler. I'm not going to defend Chris Jericho the human being. No. I can't. I don't know him.
I don't know him. I for some of these, honestly, for wrestling in general, I kind of try and know as little as possible and just enjoy the in-ring product.
You don't want to know who had diarrhea into a pizza box.
I definitely did not want to know that about Darby Allin. I mean, sometimes it's good. I listened to that Aubrey Edwards episode of the AEW. I can't remember what it's called, like Unfiltered or Unrestricted, maybe.
Just say podcast.
The AEW Tony Schiavone Aubrey Edwards podcast that featured as its guest Aubrey Edwards.
Who is Tony Schiavone?
Uh-huh.
No, who is he, though?
Oh, he's the one on Dynamite that says, that's right, JR, and that's right, Excalibur. Funniest thing I've honestly ever heard
He's
Tony
a guy
Schiavone
that
say.
I never cared for, but he is reinventing himself in AEW, and he's making it entertaining.
Yeah, Schiavone's a weird one, because that's a dude, I've never watched WCW broadcasts, ever. Never watched one of their pay-per-views, never watched one of their TV shows, ever. My awareness of WCW started when WWE bought the brand and started building in some of their wrestlers. Like, I didn't know nothing about nobody. So, Schiavone was not a guy that they brought over. So he's a guy that I'd never heard on broadcast until that first episode of Dynamite. And then I was like, oh, Tony Schiavone, because like all I could think is like WCW, but didn't that brand suck?
Yeah.
And I'm on record as not being a fan of a three-man broadcast team. I don't see the value of it. I don't like it. It's definitely one person too many.
Yeah, one person's always saying, you're right, Excalibur.
Uh-huh.
You're right, JR.
Yeah, or you've got like two guys doing one job, basically. Jim Ross and Tony Schiavone do the same job. They just do it in different cadences and with different turns of phrase. But I've generally enjoyed his work, but I thought him and Jericho were killer. Him and Cody were good, but him and Jericho were just clearly two people who were like, they have a history, they know their rhythms, they each have a very specific role in telling the story of what's going on in the ring for the people at home. And it just, they're great. And him and Aubrey Edwards had a real great chemistry on the episode where it's mostly Aubrey Edwards talking about her history and how she got to be a ref in AEW.
I still need to listen to that.
It's real good. If you wait too long, I'm going to keep giving you all of it piecemeal in little asides.
If I wait...
Oh, by the way.
If I wait...
I said too long. Yeah, wrestling's real good right now. AEW, at least. I don't watch the other shows, but AEW is a lot of fun.
Spoiler alert, you might be watching some this weekend.
Oh, no.
Hey, changing gears for the last comic-related thing, the last part of the podcast.
Okay.
I just want to point out two people and two fans of Ryan Brown and or Charles Soule, and it's specifically when they team up together for a book called Curse Words. They have a Kickstarter running right now for the entire Curse Word series, Curse Worlds, the whole damn thing.
Curse words.
It is a hardcover graphic novel that collects all 25 issues of the series. Their 3 seasonal specials will have a whole new story written by Charles and Ryan and drawn by Ryan. And it is all a massive $75 hardcover that is up on Kickstarter right now.
It's also going to include every single cover they did for Curse Words.
That's right. Every cover and a whole bunch of back matter. It is, I don't know, like 472 pages, something like that.
700 pages.
700 pages, £4. I know there's a 4 in there somewhere. 782 pages, £4. We will be fulfilling the Kickstarter for them. We somehow got roped into that.
Ryan asked if we would be willing to do it, and we always want to help out Ryan and Charles as much as we can, and so we agreed to do it.
So it was immediately funded in the first few hours, but that doesn't mean you should not fund it. We're going to have it for the stores, but we imagine that the majority of people that want to get it will get it from the Kickstarter.
Yeah, I will mention that the version we are going to have in the store is going to be the bare bones hardcover edition. There are a variety of different pledge levels you can do, different levels of backing that can get you different things. Limited edition copies of the book with stamps, autographs, sketches, dual sketches, bigger sketches, original curses from Charles.
Oh, wow.
Editions of the book that Ryan and his son Kirby doodle in.
Interesting.
Up to and including a van.
Yes, you could actually get a Curse Words van.
You can get a van designed by Charles and Ryan that Charles and Ryan will drive to you once conditions improve.
I will say
to allow
that one of my all-time favorite Photoshop things I did was when they were doing the Curse Word van tour around the country. Mm-hmm. I made a Curse Words van. I found like this beat up old VW van, and I photoshopped the Curse Words cover on it. But I wrapped it, and it came out. It's one of my, I'm not good at Photoshop. It's one of the best things I ever did.
Nice.
And it was such a beat up old janky 70s van. It perfectly fit.
Nice.
So you can support that if you want. You're not helping us, you're helping them. But more than that, you're getting a great book out of it. And as a store that sells comics, we pretty much don't support comics Kickstarters anymore. Because we feel that people who will want it will already have gotten it.
Yeah.
And
that's generally proven to be true.
And yeah, we've been burned a lot on things we tried to support. But we support these guys wholeheartedly. Even if they did use a really old photo of us that was me pre-beard.
I don't know if I even saw the photo.
Oh, yeah. It was...
Was it in the video?
Yeah.
I didn't watch the video yet.
Okay. It's you and I standing looking at each other lovingly by the graphic novels.
Okay. Thank you for adding more detail in, because there's a lot of pictures of us looking at each other lovingly.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know which one. But yeah, it's clearly like 5 or 6 years old.
Sure.
Because it is a facial hairless one of me, and it's so weird to see.
Sure.
But there you go. You can support that, and you can support us on Patreon, and you can listen whenever you want, which you just did. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155.
And in the River North neighborhood of Chicago at 750 North Franklin Street, number 103, 312-285-2252.
Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.